course of the story, the importance of being collaborative about this, and how the rules affect this narrative goal, because they most definitely do. All right, this is rule number one. This is maybe rule number two. Conflict drives narrative. What's the conflict? What are the players fighting against, and why? No players, characters fighting against, and why? Part of this is has to have a conflict that everyone wants to be involved in. It's very easy as a GM to write this elaborate thing in your spare time and then drop it on your players whole hog with no idea what to expect. That can work if you know your players really, really well. More often than not, it does not work. And they're going to chafe under that, and they're not going to quite want to go along with it, or they're going to come up with a character that doesn't really fit it. You want to avoid that. You want to work all this out ahead of time if you can, get everyone an idea of what the conflicts of this game are. One excellent thing to do, you don't have to, but it sometimes helps, give everyone an idea of what the conflict for any given session is going to be. You can do this in a very meta way. Like, in this session, we're going to assault the keep of the Goblin King. In this session, we're going to determine whether or not the king executes all of you for starting a war with the goblins. Next slide. Ah, yes, that is relevant. Your plot's going to write itself. Your plot is driven by all the players at the table. They all have to have stakes in it in order for it to move forward. Actually, it's not wrong. Here we go. Talk about conflict resolution. This is what the rules are for. If you wanted to just spin out a big story, you don't need to roll dice for it. The dice are there for when either two players disagree about what should happen next, and one of those players will be the GM. Or no one actually knows what will be most interesting to happen next. This is one of the very interesting things dice do in a role-playing game, is that they add an element of the unexpected. And adapting to that unexpectedness often produces a lot of fun. But beyond the rules, fool your players into thinking you're safe. What I've found works very well is that players generally start with their characters in a position of strength. They're an expert at whatever their character's field of knowledge is. They've graduated from wizarding school, or they've just come back victorious from battle, or whatever. First thing you need to do is drag that out from under them. Make them suffer, make them fail. Make failure interesting. Don't make failure a brick wall that cannot be surmounted. Make it twist the story in directions that they don't necessarily want it to go. Often you can make a distinction here between where the player wants to go and where the character wants to go. The Holy Knight's paladin type does not want to be convinced their god is false.
Yeah, still that's
The player of that Holy Knight paladin type may find it very interesting to get into arguments about whether or not their god is false, and to have that inner conflict in the character. So this is the sort of thing where you need to know what the conflicts are ahead of time, both character-specific ones and your overarching. So, you beat down the players, you make their lives hell, everything goes wrong, and sooner or later, they will start learning. They'll figure things out. They'll overcome the obstacles. And when this happens, you let it for a little while. You let it go, you let them win, you get it back to a safe place. You let them enjoy that safe place for a little bit, and then you can repeat the cycle. And you do this. This is a pretty basic narrative trick. It's just kind of rising in peaks of tension. And it makes for very good general framework. Related to that, related also to conflict resolution is intra-party conflict. And here you're going to somewhat be dependent on your system and the types of players you have. Regardless, you should know ahead of time, your group should know, how much conflict between players you want there to be. I have seen games where it's like almost entirely player versus player. Everyone's maneuvering against each other, making alliances, breaking them, stabbing people in the back. That's great, but people have to be comfortable with that kind of play. Not everyone is. If half the group wants to do the standard, we're an adventuring party, we're together against the world, half your group wants to do politics and backstabbing among the group, that doesn't mesh very well. So, intra-party conflict, having mechanics that allow it. One of the flaws of D&D is that intra-party conflicts either doesn't have a mechanical resolution or ends with people dying, which often isn't interesting. Something to think about when you're deciding how much intra-party conflict you want to have. Regardless of in addition to all of that, your job as the GM is to keep the story moving. This is your #1 most important job. The players each have their thing they want to do. Your job is to look at the big picture and make sure all the things they're doing are contributing to some final resolution. Yes, final resolution. Your game is going to end. But accept this. Work with it. Use it. You can go as far as to say this game is going to last 10 sessions and then it's going to be over. This will push your players into being more drastic, less risk averse, because they only have so long in which to accomplish whatever their character wants to accomplish. And this makes for more dramatic and more interesting play. This is rule #1 for keeping things moving in the game. When in doubt, blow something up. There are a couple of corollaries to this. The most obvious one is that if things are stalemate, if your characters are arguing over some unimportant point of etiquette, your job as the GM is to shake them out of that. This can be very literal, having an explosion. The literal formulating of this rule came from a game in which I stopped 4 members of the party from murdering a fifth by having a town nearby explode. And it worked, believe it or not. Sometimes, yes, your explosion needs to be big and dramatic and obvious like that. Sometimes it can be something little. It can be the unexpected plot twist, the thing that sends one character in a direction they didn't expect. They're seeking their master that they have lost for the whole game, and then they run into him, and he's working for the villain. Oh, fuck! And sometimes you don't get to plan these things. I sometimes heard this called bang. Have, as a GM, a couple of conflicts, villains, surprises you can just drop on your players at any time in the course of the session. Don't require that all of these happen. Just have them ready in case you need to shake things up, you need to get things moving. Very often you don't need to. Your players will seek out the conflicts themselves if they're conflicts their characters care about. All of this is collaborative storytelling. Collaborative storytelling. It's not the GM railroad, it's the group railroad. This is the reason railroading is bad. If one person wants to tell a story, you can go write a book. It's a perfectly acceptable thing to do. Go write fan fiction, go do a webcomic. If you want to do it with a gaming group, the group should participate. That's the fun of it, is to not have your expectations undermined by everyone else around you. So you want to keep everyone involved. While you as the GM will probably want to set a big overarching plot, you don't necessarily want to, well, not necessarily.